is the genre? What type of literature are you looking at?
The first thing is that it's an accurate historical account. The presentation is such, and the perspective of the writers, that they believe they were talking about real events.
Okay. Well, you're talking about days here. Do you see these as literal days? Is that what the text is telling us? Or you know what other people think, that this is just a poetic, different
Well,
kind
first of all,
view?
it's not poetry. The world's greatest Hebraists all affirm that this is a narrative. They say that that's one of the unique features of the Genesis accounts of creation and the flood, is that they are narratives, because in the ancient Near East, they are done in epic poetry, which is very different. And here we have narrative to indicate that this is historical. What that means is that you should understand the words, the normal way in which those Hebrew words are understood. The word yom, it means day. The foundation of its usage is what we mean by a day. It's a 24-hour day. The only way you'd want it to mean a longer period of time is if you impose an alien concept to the text and say, well, I think that these are ages, and therefore yom has to mean ages. What you have to do is start with the text.
Yeah.
If we start with the text, yom means day.
So when we come to the passage that talks about the creation of Adam and Eve, you're seeing that as a clear historical event which would stand in direct opposition to the conventional paradigm that man evolved out of a long, long process.
The biblical text is not compatible with the standard, the conventional paradigm.
Written as history, and I could play a whole bunch of clips from that documentary where he makes the solid case, because they're arguing against evolution here. So all of a sudden now they're being very literal, and day means day, right? It's not a long age, so you can't stretch Genesis to justify long periods of time for evolution. A day means a 24-hour time period. A day means day. So, and he makes the case that Genesis is a literal historical account. It's not metaphorical. It's not phenomenological. It's not poetry. It is literal. And then he comes out and says, the first thing we see is a ball floating in space.
The next thing we find in Genesis 1:2, we find a water ball that is in
Come on, man. Like, I would challenge anybody in the audience out there right now to go pick up a Bible, read Genesis 1, and show me a ball floating in space anywhere in Genesis 1.
A ball of water, no less.
A ball of water floating in space. So,
wow.
So this guy's got some problems. And I think anybody, I hate to say it, but anybody with a doctorate degree and letters after their name runs into the same problem. They get stuck by their own cognitive dissonance with whatever their preconceived bias is, whatever they believe going into it, they impose upon the text, even when they're trying to make a scholarly case for what the text actually says. You know, they're throwing their own stuff into it.
That's exactly what's happening. You know, in the first documentary, he's like, it is a historical, literal narrative. In the Creation Guy's video, all of a sudden, well, you have to understand what type of genre you're looking at, you know, this phenomenological and it's poetic and all these other things. Like, dude, you know, be consistent here. If you're going to take the creation account and you're going to take a stand on it and you're going to say, look, he's right. The biblical narrative is not compatible with the standard paradigm. It's just not. So stop trying to make it that way. You can't say Genesis 1, literal, Genesis 2, literal, you know, day 1, literal, day 2, poetic. Day 3, literal, day 4, literal. Oh, no, not day 4 is when the sun, moon, that's poetic. Day 5, literal, day 6, literal, day 7, forget about that, Jesus died, we don't have to do that. You can't do that. You have to go right through the whole thing and be consistent with it. So let's go ahead and attempt to do that.